I never thought that the sound of my own daughter's voice would split me in two. "That's the fat pig we have to put up with." Her words sliced clean through the air like glass. I was standing in the reception line, hand extended, waiting to greet her new in-laws. Brianna leaned toward her bridesmaid with a smirk, lips barely moving, but the mic on her lace bodice picked up every syllable. The videographer, aiming for candids, caught it all. I saw it later, slow motion on the raw footage, like an aftershock. At the moment, I just froze, hand still out, smile caught in amber. The in-laws chuckled. Two of them did, anyway. One woman, the groom's aunt I'd learn later, shifted uncomfortably and looked at her shoes. Gut punched. That's the closest I can come. Like the time I walked into the kitchen and found my first husband on the phone, whispering to a woman named Nisi, telling her he wished I'd disappear. I turned and looked around, 130 guests, all dressed in plum and navy, chattering, sipping champagne I paid for. None of them had heard. Not yet. But I had. And the sick part? My first instinct wasn't to storm out or confront her. It was to shrink, to vanish behind the hydrangea wall like a shadow in organza. $18,000. That's what I'd spent on this day. Cake tastings, calligraphy invitations, those little satin favor bags she swore she had to have. I'd sent the checks, paid deposits, booked hotel blocks. No reimbursement agreement, just trust. And this was the return. I moved away from the line, stomach clenching, and found an empty chair near the back of the ballroom, behind a towering pillar of roses. Brianna raised her champagne glass to her bridesmaids and, noticing me, lifted her eyebrows in mock surprise. She mimed a wave, her lips curling like someone saying, "Bless your heart," but not kindly. No one saw me wipe my face, but the mic had, and it was record. All of it. And somewhere, still swinging from the sash on the video camera, that audio file was waiting, my first receipt. I didn't know it yet, but it would be the first stone in a path back to myself. I stayed behind the pillar. The DJ had shifted into one of those jazzy. I listened to the faint clinking of forks against plates, the polite hum of distant conversation, all of it unfolding like I was underwater. I couldn't bear to look at anyone, let alone Brianna, so I sat there in the shadows, my heels aching, my palms slick with sweat, trying to regulate my breathing. At the far end of the ballroom, I watched her lift a second glass of champagne, poured from the same bottle I'd picked out during the tastings at Donatelli's back in July, and clink it against her new husband's flute. Her cheeks were flushed with celebration and wine. Her train was fanned out behind her like royalty. And then she turned, made eye contact with one of her bridesmaids, and tilted her chin subtly in my direction. They laughed. It was the gesture that broke me, discreet but practiced, like she'd performed it before. She wasn't even trying to hide the cruelty. I could see her whisper something again, and though I couldn't hear it this time, I recognized the tone, the quick curl of the lip, the practiced glee in making someone small. I glanced down at my dress, the deep eggplant chiffon that Brianna insisted I wear because burgundy makes older skin look sallow. I'd bought it without protest, wanting her day to be perfect. I'd even matched my nails to the fabric. But in that moment, I saw how little I actually belonged in any of it. Not the color, not the room, not the story unfolding on stage like a pageant I'd accidentally wandered into. My phone buzzed in my lap. It was a text from Donna, my sister in Raleigh. She wasn't able to attend, her arthritis flaring too badly for the drive. I heard what she said. "I'm so sorry." Just that. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. For years, I've been the woman who shows up, who doesn't ask for much, who writes the checks quietly and smiles even when the joke's at her expense. But something shifted in me that night, behind that wall of roses. Not all at once, not yet a fire, just the first warmth of a match in a cold, dark room. And I held on to it. 2 weeks earlier, my life had its own quiet rhythm, the kind that hums beneath the surface of things without needing to be named. I'd get up by 6:15, same as always, stretch my knees until they stopped protesting, and put the kettle on. My house on Lockhart Avenue, tucked between the oaks and modest porch lights of West Charlotte, always smelled of lemon cleaner and peppermint oil. I kept it that way because I liked knowing everything had its place, At 7:45, I'd be in the car, headed to Lathrop Industries. I've worked in human resources there for 19 years, and this fall I'd just been offered the vice president title, though I hadn't told anyone yet, not even Brianna. I'd planned to share the news at the rehearsal dinner, between the toasts and shrimp cocktails. Funny how things work out. HR isn't glamorous, but it suits me. I keep people's secrets, resolve their disputes, and make sure the numbers stay honest. People trust me. Neil, my young assistant, often calls me his office auntie. I like that. I've never needed the spotlight, just the truth, and a path through chaos that made sense. Sunday mornings were my sanctuary. I've been a choir alto at Mount Olive AME for 23 years. Never missed a fifth Sunday solo unless I was down with fever. The sanctuary's stained glass windows catch the morning light just right, throwing soft amber over the pews, and when Pastor Deems raises her arms, the air itself seems to still. That church has seen me through losing my first husband, through my years as a single mother, and through raising Brianna into something I thought was resilience. The women there, Sister Jean, Deaconess Morris, all of them, are my breath when the rest of the world feels thin. My planner still sat open on the kitchen counter, where I jotted notes from the last staff meeting and penciled in Brianna's final cake tasting. Thursday's line read, "Pick up choir robe from cleaner and wire $600 to Brianna." At the time, it didn't feel like anything, just what mothers do. I hadn't yet pulled the receipts. I hadn't yet seen it in ink, the accumulation. But that morning, 2 weeks before the wedding, I'd hummed a hymn as I stirred my coffee, thinking I was building a bridge for Brianna to walk across. I didn't realize she'd use it to walk over me. It wasn't always like this. I remind myself that sometimes, when the sting rises uninvited. There were years, sweet, stumbling years, when Brianna would curl beside me on the couch with her knees pulled up and a blanket around her shoulders, asking, "Mama, what would I do without you?" She used to mean it. After her father overdosed in that motel off Statesville Road, it was just the two of us. She was 12. Grief rearranges the bones of a house, makes walls echo, makes food taste thin. I remember holding her hair back the first time she sobbed until she vomited. We slept in the same bed for 3 weeks straight. I'd whisper Psalm chapter 23 while she cried herself quiet. Over time, the crying stopped, but the asking didn't. In 2022, when she got into Bennett College, she called me breathless. "Mama, I got in! I got in!" The joy in her voice was something rare, still soft enough to feel sacred. I drove up with her, unloaded the dorm trunk, met her roommate's mother, and pressed $12,000 into the bursar's hand without blinking. She said she'd pay it back once she got on her feet, but we both knew what that meant. Then came the car, used Honda Civic, powder blue, 2014. "I just need help with the down payment," she'd said, eyes big with urgency. $4,500 later, she drove off while I stood on the sidewalk waving, still wearing my Sunday heels. And through it all, I absorbed the stress she didn't have words for. The heartbreaks, the job hunts, the months she only ate cup noodles because she couldn't make rent. I floated her $3,000 that July. I didn't tell anyone, just wired the money, texted her, "Got it covered, focus on you." Motherhood, I'd told myself, was about showing up, no matter the cost. There was one night, early spring, 2023, when she called from her apartment, sobbing over a breakup and a bounced check. "You're the only one who's ever had my back," she'd said. I remember wiping my face after we hung up, sitting in the dark kitchen, tea gone cold, telling myself it was worth it, that she'd remember, that she'd never forget who picked her up every time the world dropped her. But she did. Or maybe she didn't forget at all. Maybe she just decided it didn't matter anymore. The day after the wedding, I sat alone in my office long after everyone had gone home, the blue-gray light of early evening seeping through the glass like slow water. My heels were off. My desk was scattered with manila folders, invoices, old receipts. It was time to see it plainly, not emotionally, mathematically. I opened my banking app first, scrolled through transactions like they were diary entries. August 2023, $3,000 transfer labeled Rent, Bree, Urgent. May 2022, $12,000 tuition wire to Bennett College. October 2021, $4,500 debit to Charlotte Honda Certified. Initial for Bree's car this month. September 9th. Wedding deposit, Donatelli Catering, $5,800. Followed closely by Bree Floral Vendor Payment, $3,200. Taylor DJ, Venue Hold. All me. My stomach curled at the total, $18,000 for a day that ended with my daughter calling me a pig. I clicked through more Venmo notes that read, for groceries, last-minute dress, his ring. I hadn't tracked it in real time. I was too busy being mama. Neil, my assistant, stopped in with a paper cup of tea, the kind he brings when he sees my shoes off and my jaw set. He didn't say anything, just placed it beside me and left the door cracked. He's 26, half Brianna's friend, half mine, and when he brings me chamomile, it's his way of saying, I see you. The spreadsheet came next. I named it Care Accumulated. I added columns, date, amount, reason, method of payment, line by line, year by year, tuition, car, rent, groceries, wedding. There it was, $37,500. 6 years. No contracts, no IOUs, just trust. A memory slipped in. Brianna's voice, half laughing, one winter night as I reminded her to send a thank you note. You'll always help me, she said. You love me too much not to. It wasn't even cruel when she said it, just factual, as if she was naming the weather. I stared at the number. $37,500. I had built a financial scaffold around her entire adulthood. I had given quietly, so she wouldn't feel poor, so she wouldn't feel abandoned. And now? Now, she poured champagne over my silence and toasted to a new life I wasn't invited into. I closed the spreadsheet and named the file something simple. Ledger M. Not for money. For memory. The first sign should have been at the brunch. 3 weeks before the wedding. The planner, Elise Monroe, a willowy young woman with a clipboard and a voice like soft jazz, had hosted us at a little cafe in Noda, macarons and mood boards. I'd brought my annotated binder of venues, budget notes, even swatches I'd gathered from Joanne's. Brianna had barely looked at me. Halfway through the pastries, I cleared my throat. I'd love to say something at the reception. Nothing big, just a few words to bless the day. She didn't hesitate, not a blink. Mama, no. Flat, sharp. Let's not make this about you. Elise froze mid-sip. The server hovering nearby paused before refilling my cup. I blinked, caught off guard. About me? I was just thinking. I know, she said quickly, eyes narrowing like she was reading my intentions line by line. But you always get emotional, and you know how you talk. People don't need a whole monologue. I'd been a speaker at Women's Leadership Summit 4 years running. I coach conflict resolution in the workplace, but here, my daughter reduced me to a caricature of messy emotion and over-talking. Just enjoy, Mom, she said with forced sweetness. Please, no speeches. It's better this way. Elise, trying to smooth the moment, chirped. We're so excited to finalize the venue today, though, right? She slid her iPad between us. The screen glowed with a digital rendering of the ballroom, crisp table settings, dramatic uplighting, faux cherry blossoms. The Fairmont has everything you both asked for. Brianna nodded, immediately distracted. Yes, that's it. I reached into my bag and handed Elise the check for $1,800, the deposit due that morning. The planner gave me a warm smile, typed something into her notes, and CC'd me on the follow-up email. Brianna didn't say thank you. That night, I reread the subject line of that calendar invite. Venue finalization plus family boundaries. Family boundaries. The wording had felt odd at the time, clinical, distant, but I chalked it up to wedding stress. Now, sitting alone with my ledger and my tea gone cold, I saw it clearly. That brunch wasn't just logistics. It was rehearsal, a soft rollout of silence. And I'd clapped politely for it, thinking I was being helpful. The email came 4 days after the wedding. Subject line, proposed legacy plan. I was at my desk, sorting through final quarter reports when the notification dinged. The sender was Brianna, though the signature at the bottom bore both her and her new husband's names, Brianna and Jordan Greaves, Family Planning Division. I clicked it open, expecting a thank you, maybe a photo, something ceremonial. Instead, I found a PDF attachment and 3 terse paragraphs. "Hi, Mom," it began. "Jordan and I have been discussing how best to safeguard your future, especially now that you're entering a new phase of life." A new phase of life? We've spoken with a financial consultant about ways to protect family assets long term. One suggestion was to transfer the condo into a marital trust. This ensures stability for all of us and opens pathways for assisted living options when appropriate. They'd attached a form titled Transfer of Title to Marital Trust. Blank signature lines. A highlighted deadline, October 20th. No pleasantries. No photos. No mention of the $18,000 I'd spent 12 days prior. Just a cool presumption of compliance. I stared at the screen, ice blooming in my chest. The condo was mine, bought in 2009 after I paid off the last of the debts from Brianna's father. 3 bedrooms, no mortgage, walking distance to the church. I'd refinished the kitchen floors myself, stained beneath my fingernails for weeks. Every inch of that place held my labor, my love. I read the sentence again. Opens pathways for assisted living. There it was. Not suggestion. Strategy. I forwarded the email to Carla James, a lawyer I'd met at a corporate retreat last year. We'd once sat beside each other at a panel on workplace equity. I remembered her sharpness, her calm. I attached the PDF and wrote, "Carla, need eyes on this. Something doesn't feel right." Then I closed my laptop, walked to the kitchen, and stood in front of the window, hands gripping the sink. The late afternoon light spilled across the tile. Outside, the neighbor's boy rode his bike in circles, shrieking with joy. I thought of how Brianna used to loop her arms around my waist as I stirred grits. "Don't let go," she'd whisper. And now, here she was, pen in hand, eager to sever. I hadn't even caught my breath yet, and they were already circling the deed. I came home from work a little early that Sunday. The choir had been short on altos at morning service, and my throat was still raw from compensating. I pulled into the driveway, noticing a red BMW parked crooked in front of my unit. Not familiar. The blinds were slightly drawn in the living room. Unusual, since I always keep them even. Inside, voices. I paused at the door, keys in hand, and heard the pitch-perfect cadence of my daughter's practice charm. "And here's the main room. It gets a ton of light in the mornings," she was saying, like a realtor on commission. I stepped inside. Jordan stood in the entryway, mid-gesture, his arm extended as if presenting a stage. 2 strangers stood beside him, a couple in their 30s, with glossy pamphlets in hand. Brianna was near the window, pointing out the sightlines. Everyone turned. "Oh, Mom," she chirped, too brightly. "You're home early." I didn't answer right away. My eyes swept the room. The realtor's business card on the coffee table. My grandmother's quilt folded into a perfect square on the back of the armchair. Moved. The scent of white lilies clung to the air, not mine. The taller of the 2 visitors smiled awkwardly. "We didn't realize this was still your residence." I looked at Brianna. "Would someone like to explain what's happening in my house?" Jordan stepped forward. "We're just showing the space. Getting a feel for the market, that's all. Without my knowledge? Without my presence?" Brianna gave that strained little laugh she used when pretending I was being dramatic. "We assumed you'd want to help us get started. It's not like you're using the whole space. We were thinking maybe downsizing would be a blessing in disguise." The pamphlets in the woman's hand curled slightly as she tried to slip them discreetly into her purse. "You brought strangers into my home," I said evenly, "and toured it like I was already gone." Brianna's tone flipped to sugar. "Mom, come on! You always said you wanted to travel more. We just want to support that dream." I didn't respond. I walked past them into the kitchen, where the vase of church roses had been moved to accommodate a scented candle I didn't buy. By the time I returned, the buyers were already leaving. Their goodbye was tight with apology. I didn't sign a thing. The very next morning, I texted Brianna a simple message. "No, the condo is not being transferred. Please do not enter my home without permission again." She didn't reply. By noon, I was blocked. Instagram first, then Facebook. Even WhatsApp returned a gray profile photo and a notice I'd never seen before. "You can no longer send messages to this contact." But it was the Instagram story that caught me off guard. A peach-toned selfie of her and Jordan at brunch, mimosas lifted, smiles too wide. Captioned in her loopy, curated font. Toxic is out of our lives. Nail polish medium skin tone sparkles. Toxic? I stared at that word for a long time. It clung to my skin like something sticky. For years, I had made space for her mess, smoothed her sharp edges, handed her dignity even when she flung it back at me. Now she'd reduced me to a hashtag and a punchline. I was still sitting in my car when I saw it. Parked in the church lot after Sunday service, robe unzipped, Bible still resting in the passenger seat. I hadn't even gone into Fellowship Hall for coffee. Couldn't bring myself to explain to Sister Jean why I looked like I'd swallowed glass. A knock on the window startled me. It was Pastor Deems. She didn't ask questions, just opened the passenger side and sat down, folding her hands in her lap like she had all the time in the world. You want to tell me what happened or just sit? I chose the latter. The silence between us was soft, not empty. After a while I said, she blocked me. After all I've done. Pastor Deems nodded slowly, like she'd seen this kind of betrayal before. Maybe not with houses and hashtags, but with church members and families and the slow erosion of honor. You don't have to be everybody's well, she said quietly, especially when they poison it. It wasn't a fix. Not yet. But it was a clean sentence in a day of static. When I got home, I deleted the story screenshot from my phone, but not before saving it to a new folder. I titled it Receipts, not in anger, but in documentation. By Tuesday morning, the grief had burned down to something sharper. Not rage. Not yet. Just the brittle quiet that follows disappointment when it's no longer new. I stood in my bedroom, the October sun slanting through the blinds in soft golden ribbons, brushing dust motes across the mirror. My reflection stared back, creased at the eyes, yes, and tired, but solid. I reached for my phone, thumb hovering over her contact. I typed out one line, I hope you find peace. Read receipt. No reply. That was the moment. No lightning flash. No dramatic orchestral swell. Just a stillness that felt heavier than air. For the first time in my life, maybe since the day I brought Brianna home in a blue cotton wrap, I realized I didn't owe her my surrender. Not my house. Not my silence. Not my guilt. She'd made her choice. I would make mine. I slid open the drawer beneath the jewelry box where I kept important things. Passport, old insurance paperwork, a photograph of my mother in her pressed white dress and Sunday hat. From the back, I pulled out the envelope Carla James had sent me months ago when I'd casually asked for general estate advice. It was time to move from memory to motion. I made a list that morning, not of grievances, but of steps, tangible things, action that could be traced, notarized, and filed. The first item, protect the house. The second, untangle our finances. The third, get ahead of whatever playbook she and Jordan were running. I walked to the bathroom and splashed cold water on my face. My toothbrush hummed against my teeth like a metronome. I laid out clothes with purpose. Pressed gray slacks, navy blouse, flats with a low heel. The kind of outfit you wear when you want to be underestimated by people who don't know better. I ate my breakfast alone at the table, the chair across from me still pushed slightly out from the last time Brianna sat there. She had laughed over sweet tea, talking about floral centerpieces. I could still hear the echo of it, but there was no room left for echoes. This time the table held a different meal, resolve, seasoned with silence. I packed my folder, locked the door behind me, and whispered to no one in particular, let's begin. Liberty Bank's Graham Street branch has tall glass windows that catch the sun just right around 2 o'clock. The kind of light that reveals fingerprints on polished surfaces and truths people try to keep hidden. I walked through those doors with my chin high and my folder pressed to my side like scripture. Ms. Rochelle Owens, the account officer, greeted me with a smile that didn't ask questions. She was the kind of woman who wore pearls with pantsuits and remembered birthdays. We'd met once before, back in 2018, when I refinanced a CD to help Brianna move apartments. I doubted she remembered, but I did. How can I help you today, Ms. Carter? She asked, gesturing to the small desk behind the privacy screen. I sat, unfolded my folder, and handed over the first document. I need to freeze all accounts where my daughter has access, joint, co-signed, or authorized user. And I'd like to update my deed survivorship clause. Ms. Owens blinked once, then nodded, not a flicker of judgment in her expression. Do you have power of attorney documents on file with us currently? I do. I'd like to revoke them, effective immediately. Her fingers danced across the keyboard, efficient, precise. She printed a stack of confirmation pages, each one a small exhale in paper form. We reviewed account by account, verifying every name, removing Brianna's where necessary. Then came the property documents. She handed me a blank survivorship amendment form, and I signed under the buzz of fluorescent light, initials steady in every corner. When she stamped the final page, Rochelle looked up, her voice quieter. If you don't mind me asking, is everything all right? I smiled, not bitter, but whole. Everything is just fine. I'm just cleaning my house, so to speak. She nodded like she understood more than I'd said. That night, my phone rang 6 times before dinner. All Brianna. Then a voicemail. You're ruining everything. I don't know what you think you're doing, but you're acting crazy. This isn't love. It's spite. I didn't reply. I didn't listen again. I saved it, just in case. Instead, I put the papers in my fire-safe box, locked it with the brass key Donna gave me 2 Christmases ago, and made a note in my planner. October 15th, 2025, control reestablished. By the next morning, I knew I needed to go one step further. Not just financial locks, physical ones, digital ones. A life sealed tight from meddling hands and soft-voiced manipulation. I took the train downtown to First Union, the branch with the vault access I hadn't used in years. The clerk, Samir Patel, greeted me like a nephew would. Miss Carter, he smiled. It's been a while. Yes, I said, setting my leather satchel on the counter. And it's going to be a while longer. I need a new safe deposit box, larger. And I need to update my signature. We went through the motions, ID verified, signature card signed. He led me to the vault, a chilled room that smelled of steel and airlessness. The new box opened with a clean click, its metal face blank and waiting. Inside, I placed what mattered. Printed copies of the bank revocations, the updated deed, my amended will, insurance policies, even a certified copy of my birth certificate. I added USB backups, one with Carla's files, another with my scanned receipts, labeled and organized. I kept a slim binder in the center. Its title, hand-lettered in blue ink, House, Money, History. A final document slipped in as I left. The Liberty confirmation from Rochelle, stamped October 15th. As Samir locked the vault, he glanced at me and said, "People don't usually come in this prepared. Most folks wait until something's gone." I met his gaze. I waited long enough. On my way home, I checked the HOA portal for my building, a habit more than a necessity. And there it was, sitting in the login alerts, an attempt at 3:14 a.m. from an unrecognized device. The access had been blocked, password changed, IP flagged, Jordan. That sealed it. They weren't done, but neither was I. I screenshot the alert and sent it to Carla with the subject line, FYI, unauthorized access attempt. 10 minutes later, her reply came, "Good. Keep the logs. We'll use it if needed. You're doing everything right." I leaned back in my chair, phone still warm in my hand. Outside, a neighbor's wind chime tapped a lazy rhythm against the porch post. For the first time in weeks, my breathing matched something steady. My life wasn't an open door anymore, and every key now lived in my own pocket. Friday evening found me at my kitchen table again, but this time I wasn't alone. I'd brewed a fresh pot of Earl Grey and set out sliced honey cake, the kind Donna always asked for when she visited. She arrived just after 7, wrapped in that green shawl she never leaves Raleigh without. Carla dialed in from her office, her voice crisp through the Bluetooth speaker. Pastor Deems came straight from the church, still in her slacks and heels, her Bible under one arm and a plastic container of roasted almonds in the other. Neil showed up last, apologizing for being late and holding a bag of takeout from Mother's Soul Kitchen. I hadn't asked him to bring food, but of course he had. We gathered around the table like a council. I'd labeled folders for each of them: legal, CJ, family, DR, church, VD, work, NH, no ceremony, just clarity. I'm not in crisis, I told them, but I need each of you to know what's happened, what steps I've taken, and where everything stands. Donna's lips pressed tight, knuckles whitening around her mug. Carla, ever the tactician, asked for names and dates. Pastor Deems listened with that steady, deliberate attention that never felt performative. Neil took notes in a small black notebook, nodding thoughtfully. They heard about the revoked deed access, the vault documents, the login attempt, the voicemail. I even played Brianna's message on speaker, her voice small and angry in the quiet room. When it ended, no one said anything for a moment. Then Donna reached across and squeezed my hand. "She doesn't get to write the story alone," Pastor Deems added. "The prodigal tale only works when the parent stays soft. Sometimes the lesson is the gate." Carla nodded. "You've documented everything. If they escalate, we're ready." I opened my laptop and shared the calendar invite for our next step. Strategy call, October 17th, 7 p.m. All of them accepted. Before they left, I handed each person a copy of my updated will. One stored in Carla's cloud vault, one in Donna's fire safe, one in the church office under a sealed envelope marked "For pastor's eyes only." Neil took the encrypted USB, password protected. I didn't ask them to fix it, I just asked them to know. By Saturday morning, I was no longer reacting. I was moving. I sat in my home office, sunlight stretching across the hardwood, and drafted the email with care. Not emotion, just the facts. I wrote it the way I wrote up disciplinary notices back at Lathrop. Measured, documented, impossible to twist. Subject, cease and desist. Property access body. Brianna, any unauthorized use of my address, accounts, or legal documents, including listing the condo, sharing its information, or attempting access to my HOA, bank, or digital portals, will trigger legal intervention. This includes but is not limited to real estate transactions, false POAs, and unauthorized communication on my behalf. I am the sole legal owner of 1806 West Lockhart Avenue. The title, deed, and all rights remain with me. This is not a negotiation. I copied Carla. I reread it 3 times. No sharp edges. No openings. I hit send. The read receipt came back 7 minutes later. No reply. Just her digital silence. A new kind. The kind that recognized boundary as law. I leaned back in my chair. Outside, a child rode past on a scooter, laughing too hard. Somewhere, someone barbecued ribs. Life, unaffected, went on. But inside this house, my house, something had shifted. I printed the email, signed the bottom in pen, and slid it into the folder labeled Legal CJ. The act itself felt ceremonial, like a flag planted. When Carla called later that afternoon, her voice was firm. That was the right tone. Unemotional, direct, documented. If she crosses the line again, we have the foundation for a restraining order. I hope it won't come to that, I said quietly. It might, she replied, but you're covered. We ended the call, and I walked through my home room by room. I touched the door frames, the back of chairs. I tested every window lock. It wasn't about fear. It was ritual. Reclaiming. I passed the closet where Brianna's childhood drawings were still tucked in a folder. I didn't open it. Not yet. Instead, I stood by the front door, watching the shadows shift across the porch tiles, and whispered something under my breath I hadn't dared say until now. This is mine. Not as a threat, just a fact. And facts, once named, don't need to scream. 3 days later, the letter arrived by certified mail, stamped with the county seal. It was addressed not to Mom, not even to Miss Carter, but to the respondent. My breath caught as I slit the envelope. Inside was a formal petition, guardianship proceedings, filed through Mecklenburg County. The allegation: mental and emotional decline impairing sound decision-making. Filed by Brianna Greaves. Attached were blurry screenshots of old text messages. One from last year, where I'd written, "I'm tired, baby. Just need a weekend alone." Another, from February. "My head's been spinning lately. Works nonstop." She had annotated them, framing them as signs of instability. There were fabricated emails, ones I never wrote, suggesting I'd asked her to take over my finances, because I get confused easily. One, dated conveniently the day after the wedding, thanked her for offering to manage things. All lies, bad ones. But lies on paper become weapons in court. I called Carla immediately. my voice low and even. "It's begun." She asked for the filing number. I gave it to her. 30 minutes later, she called back. "We'll file the counter today. False filings can be prosecuted." She's gambling big. I stared at the stack of pages in my lap, the pages that tried to erase me and reassign my name to her care. She'd flipped the narrative, from exploitation to savior. She wasn't stealing from me, she was rescuing me from myself. That was the tactic. Not noise, not aggression. Reframing. I scanned the documents and forwarded them to Carla. Then I uploaded them to the encrypted drive Neil maintained, added them to the legal CJ folder in my vault binder, and printed 2 copies, one for Donna's safe, one for Pastor Deems. I made no public post, no text, no call. Silence, again, was strategy. That evening, I sat in my living room and looked at the lamp Brianna bought me for Mother's Day 2 years ago. Pale glass, soft light, meant to make reading easier. I switched it off. I didn't need light she chose for me. The next morning, Carla filed the response and a motion for sanctions. We titled it simply, Carter versus Greaves, Fraudulent Guardianship Defense. October 21st began like any other workday. I brewed coffee, ironed my slacks, and left the house by 7:45. But this time, I wore the brooch my mother gave me before she passed. A silver magnolia, tarnished at the edge but still catching light. I pinned it near my collar like a seal. Lathrop Industries Boardroom B sat on the 22nd floor, glass-paneled, sterile, humming with expensive HVAC and polite tension. I'd called an executive meeting under the official subject, Strategic Oversight Planning. In truth, I was readying the stage. Carla couldn't be there in person, court date in Raleigh, but she zoomed in from a pane in the corner screen, blazer crisp, voice unwavering. Neil had helped arrange the tech. At 9 o'clock sharp, chairs filled. I nodded at Felicia Tran, our board chair, who gave me a look that said she trusted me. No questions, just readiness. Then he walked in. Walter Greaves, Jordan's father. One of our regional vendor liaisons, newly up for a promotion I had influence over. He paused when he saw me at the head of the table, blinked, adjusted his cufflinks, sat. I welcomed the room, thanked them for their time, then clicked the remote and began my presentation. Not about metrics, about conduct. Slide 1. Title, Personal Integrity and Institutional Risk. Slide 2. A financial timeline, $37,500 over 6 years. Tuition, rent, wedding expenses. All documented with receipts, screenshots, dates. Slide 3. Wedding videographer transcript. The mic clip. Verbatim. "That's the fat pig we have to put up with." I paused. No commentary. Just let the words hang. Slide 4. Brianna's petition to the court. Her allegations. The response filed by Carla, with motion codes in bold. I looked up. Walter had gone very still. One more slide. Brianna's transcript from Bennett College, funded entirely by me. A photo of the payment receipt from 2022. My name, top left. He leaned back, eyes narrowed. "I had no idea," she said, "you offered." "No," I said calmly. She demanded. Then rewrote the story. Silence sat heavy in the room. Felicia cleared her throat. "Miss Carter, do you recommend we delay Mr. Greaves' advancement pending review?" "Yes," I said. The room remained silent, even after the last slide vanished from the screen. No questions, no defense, just the mechanical sound of someone adjusting their chair and the faint whir of the ceiling vent. I let the silence stretch. It had weight now. Let them feel it. I turned to Walter directly, resting both hands on the sleek walnut table. "I respected our professional boundaries," I said. "Until your son and daughter-in-law crossed every one of mine." He opened his mouth, then closed it again. His eyes fell to the table, where the printed transcript of the wedding audio lay, highlighted, time-stamped, branded with the videographer's company logo. Evidence, not hearsay. "They didn't tell me about the guardianship petition," he said finally, voice low. "I didn't know." I slid a second stack toward him, photocopies of the financial transfers. Every payment cross-referenced with bank dates, email threads, and matching notes. Venmo comments like, "For rent, again 2 hearts," and "Just this once, promise." The final page showed the memo from our HR payroll system. Jordan Greaves, pending promotion, now flagged for review. I had signed it that morning. You'll find, I added, that I've documented every interaction, every access attempt, and every misleading claim made in my name. Carla James is prepared to bring all of this to court if needed, but I thought you deserved to see it first. Across the table, Felicia adjusted her glasses. We expect transparency from everyone at Lathrop, regardless of rank or relation. Walter nodded slowly, his gaze not meeting mine. Understood. Carla's voice came steady through the speaker. We will also be notifying the court of these internal findings. It demonstrates a larger pattern: coercion, misrepresentation, and fraud. I turned off the screen. Meeting adjourned. As people gathered their things, a few nodded in my direction. Respect, not sympathy. Neil gave me the smallest thumbs up behind his laptop. Walter stood last. As he passed me, he paused. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I don't know how it got this far, but I did. It got this far because I let the silence stretch too long in my own house, because I mistook peace for passivity. No more." I slipped the final receipt back into my folder, closed the clasp, and walked out ahead of him. There was nothing left to explain. The evening air on October 22nd carried that soft chill Charlotte gets just before the real cold arrives. I stood on my front porch, dusk unfolding in slow violet streaks across the sky. In my right hand, a small brass keychain caught the last light, simple, weighty, engraved with my initials. LMC Donna had handed it to me that afternoon, slipping it into my palm with no ceremony. "Finally yours again," she said. It was shaped like a house. Inside, things were different now. The front door had a new lock, keypad entry only. The code lived in my head, not shared, not scribbled anywhere. The deadbolt clicked shut behind me with a sound I'd come to love. Final, intentional, security. I'd called the HOA earlier that day, confirmed that Jordan's login attempt had been flagged and blocked. They'd issued a new access protocol, paper only, notarized forms, no electronic updates allowed without my voice on the line. The security camera I'd ordered sat above the porch light, angled discreetly but firm. Neil had helped me set it up. It pinged my phone with every motion, time-stamped and logged. I saved the footage daily. Inside the house, every document had a home. Fireproof safe, vault copy, redundant drive. Nothing left floating in drawers or hope. And yet, none of it felt cold. It felt earned. My phone buzzed once. A final text from Brianna. "How could you?" No punctuation, just those words. I stared at it for a moment, long enough to feel the pull, the familiar ache of guilt she knew how to awaken. Then I deleted it. No screenshot, no reply, nothing worth archiving. Some things deserve no evidence. In the hallway, the lamp she'd once given me still sat on its stand. I didn't throw it away, I just unplugged it. Replaced it with the one my mother passed down, taller, with a heavy base and soft amber glow. It illuminated the framed choir photo on the wall, the ceramic dish with my keys, the quiet peace of a home no longer shared in theory or trespass. I wasn't angry anymore. I was clear. I stepped out onto the porch once more, keychain cool in my hand, and looked out over the street. Lights flickered on, one by one. The world didn't owe me repair, but it had given me return.